be a street pastor after I did my first counselling qualification in 2000 after leaving uni. So that was what first inspired me to do it. But since then I did a mentoring course which inspired me to include compassionate mentoring on my freelance business card, which is a pink one. And I'm very interested in Paul Gilbert and what he had to say about the compassionate mind. I read his book quite a while back now, and also I like stuff by Kamal O'Reilly, an American author who just takes interest in ordinary people spiritually near her. And then I think she changes the names of the people to address confidentiality. I don't know whether they're embellished or not, but I think the book I read and found a lot of enjoyment out of was called Angels in My Life. Now, when I first did my counselling, to go on, I was much encouraged to continue, but it was a while ago, and it was about £600 to continue at the time. So maybe I should have got more into my savings. I didn't do economics in the sixth form, I just did literature. But I did save a lot of money at university, so it would have been doable, because I was the only one that didn't overspend on my grant, or it felt like that at the time. But I did my mentoring things afterwards, which were comparatively easy compared to an English literature degree, and more enjoyable maybe. The first counselling, the introduction, was more enjoyable because, for the simple reason is, it went into psychology. It was like doing a psychology GCSE. And then I did my psychology A-level after leaving school, because we didn't do psychology in our sixth form, and that was good too. That was more kind of forensically and interested, with more clinical and statistical information than the theoretical stuff that I did the first time I did the counselling. It was going into the theory of the world famous psychologist, really. But street pastoring, because I write spiritual poems, it's something, without being too big-headed, that I'd wanted to go into. You have to have a humble outlook. No one's wanting to be bigger than God. It's a kind of you're being of service to the people, which all the great spiritual leaders and that they're aesthetically orientated, and they want to lead from below, don't they? So I'm already involved with things that are of service to others, but this was only once a month, and street pastoring, I just didn't know who to get hold of. Even though I was in touch with Chester Cathedral and I'd been spiritually involved, I didn't know quite who to get in touch with, but ultimately I did do. And what was convenient to me is that they met in Story House, and I arranged the meeting. I got hold of the right people. At the time, my mum was still alive, and I was going back to the northwest on day trips to take photos and show her, because she'd been brought up in Sale and I'd lived in Sale for a short time. And I took the bus, which was my mistake, instead of commuting and then taking the tram that time. So it involved me going out of my way to Macclesfield, rather than, as I'd hoped, getting a direct bus to Northwich and then maybe boarding the Crewe or Chester one. Well, anyway, that kind of messed things up a bit. But so I phoned through and said I'll be late, and they said, oh well, we're here with some other people, and I'd been dealing with the person that managed the local street pastors in Chester. I'd had the experience of helping a lad who'd ingested a lot of stuff, and he looked homeless or semi-homeless. Was in Abbey Square outside Chester Cathedral, and I didn't think I would end up being the only one there for him and waiting until the paramedics came. But that was basically, maybe bar one person, how the other person seemed to vaguely know him anyway. This is what happened. And even though the last time, I've never really got myself out of it in that situation. In a situation like that, the nearest thing I felt was actually when I stayed in Llanfyfecyn when I was a student at Bangor, and my dad he passed away just after I graduated. I was in my final year, so I was having, because I'd spent a year before commuting, and I was feeling quite sad once and sat under the towpath because a railway bridge ran over just a few yards from where I was staying in Diggs, and that that kind of feeling of misery is the nearest I've actually come to how that lad was feeling. But my mum died quite recently, but in a much more peaceful scenario than my dad. My dad was younger and fighting his illness, and I think it was some other issue this young man had. He was, I couldn't really. He wasn't movable because he was over, maybe over twice my size. I think if probably more than, no doubt more than that. And I was just there to keep him happy, because also there were first aid issues to address. And even though it was something non-relatable to me, and if he had girlfriend issues, that obviously is not something I can relate to from his point of view. But he was feeling pretty sad, and I just found the idea of staying with someone, because I'd had experience with my partner who suffered from a form of depression. I didn't find it too challenging. And being a street pastor, they call them street angels in Chester. You only sort of have to do the voluntary work and stay up all night helping people like once a month. It's no big deal. And also, because people just do stuff for a job sometimes, and even volunteers, they can be just doing it for something to add on to their CV. They don't get really spiritually deep. But also, because of my experiences with my dad being ill a lot, as a young adult or as a child, it's something that I would find easy to just repress once I walked away from the situation. So, I'm a tough cookie in that regard, even though I want to be humble and spiritual and kind. Well, anyway, because I was late for the venue, and I was sure they'd rearrange it. And I'd had this phone interview with someone called Dan. It sounded pretty good, and it was good to go, and they all seemed like a lovely bunch of people, very kind. But there were some old ladies older than me involved, and you know, a whole host of people. It's not put me off wanting to be a street angel in Chester. If I'm not in Chester, I want to be based in Nantwich. So I just got this rude email, and it wasn't signed, so I can't say it was this guy called Dan, and I can't say it was the guy who led the Street Angels, because that would be most weird. I've spoken up about this to another person, and he was mortified for me. He said that this is going to really anger you, surely. Yeah, because I've got my petals in teaching, and I did a degree involving literature and combining that with medieval European history, as I've probably said on some of my other vids. And then this guy said, well, you've missed it. And it looks like you can't read or communicate. We can't have people like you there. So he was bloody rude, this person who was meant to be corresponding with me from the Street Angels in Chester. And I thought, I gave as good as I got, because it was just nasty, you know. And obviously not true. If I've got a degree in English literature and learnt to read at 3, I would be able to read. It seemed a very uncouth way to act, and an uncouth thing to say. And we're getting more and more. I don't know for sure which person it was. I can't verify. We, unfortunately, in this society we're living in the UK, even in the UK, which is meant to be, I mean, the people I mix with are highly evolved people. In my local village in Tarpley, quite a few of them are. And not because of their class, because of their sense of values and ethics. And or friends that aren't necessarily from Tarpley, that I've met from other places, but people I've known a long time. And so I did get very, obviously I'm no fool, and it was all very civilised, and the correspondence took place in an email, but I was very, very annoyed at my good nature being taken the pee out of like that, as anyone would be. And as the guy I spoke to, who was from a different charitable organisation, agreed with me about, but I'm still determined in my lifetime to do this piece of voluntary work, even though I'm involved in other voluntary organisations. I feel that because I've always worked hard at what at my literary based stuff, and I have a blog, and I do a bit of podcasting. To say, you know, that I can't read or communicate is kind of it's very cheeky, really. When I'd offered to volunteer to help people, I think it seems like he resented my standard of education, and not just that, he resented my authentic nature, and the fact that I did it not for just to put it on my CV, but because I actually enjoyed it. It's like when you relate to an animal, and it's innate the way you want to look after an animal and stroke it and look into its eyes. Helping someone who's vulnerable is something, even sometimes when we feel vulnerable ourselves, in regard to me, even if I feel in a vulnerable situation myself, and even if I get to feel a bit oppressed, I still find it very easy to do. And the fact that I had sort of mentioned the fact that I'd been kind to people purely when I didn't need to on various occasions, it seemed to me to be obvious that he resented my some of my spiritual abilities, and he wanted to belittle me in that email. It doesn't seem to be the right person to be leading a group of compassionate street angels to me. But I'm still, when I speak to the right person, because I'm involved with the right network of people, I still am determined to be a street pastor or street angel. And if I have to do that in Cheshire East instead of Chester, even though it might be, it might be a little more inconvenient, but maybe not a lot, I could always do that instead if they have it. But otherwise I'm going to press to do it in Chester. And I know people in Chester. I'm connected to a lot of people in Chester. We were a nation to be proud of here in the UK. And I don't blame this on the current leader. Or any leader that much in particular. I'm thinking it's some of these bods that you get around it. I mean, we had honourable people, and I'm not accepting that the only honourable people around have to come from my own village. I don't think society should be like that. I'm reading a book on sociology, and I'm going to try and remove my fear and speak my mind even more than I'm doing now, because I am determined to use my moral integrity and compassion. I much admire the work of Paul Gilbert, by the way, and I'm determined to do something that I find easy, which is helping others. And I don't think, considering I'm not receiving remuneration from this, or ever would do, that something that I should at least be respected for, without being told, well, you won't be good at it because you can't communicate or read. That's insulting, and it's obviously untrue. So I'm going to press for it, because he should have been all too thankful that I was there to offer my help.